Hey everyone, this is Christopher Luxon, the former CEO of Air New Zealand.
This is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire.
This is Tracy Ibarra. I'm in Executive Solutions at Dell Technologies.
This is Travis Chappell, founder of Build Your Network. If you are wanting to learn how to embrace change,
To navigate through disruption as a leader,
then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast.
The Leadership is Changing podcast.
the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend,
my very good friend, Denis Giannoutsos.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsos.
Hey, welcome to the show, Leadership is Changing. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Leaders everywhere confront similar obstacles because people are people, but everywhere you go, leaders are overwhelmed, disrupted, and under pressure. They run from email to email, meeting to meeting. Many leaders are not changing quick enough, which means they run the risk of becoming irrelevant and being left behind. The purpose of the show is taking our listeners' leadership to another level by finding their balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. I believe we don't have enough effective leaders in the world today, and if we can get the leaders to step up and lead change, then they can inspire real change. Hey listeners, it's now time to adapt in our fast-moving world. And I want to welcome you to today's Ask Denis freestyle episode. Hey listeners, if you haven't already checked out the Facebook group or the LinkedIn page, Leadership is Changing, I highly recommend that you come along and join us there. We would love to see you there in that sort of forum. Great people around us who are actually sharing their thoughts, their learnings, their insights in those different forums. So the Ask Denis episode is a freestyle episode that I'm asked a question by our listeners, or I share my thoughts, insights, and experiences from working with many leaders around the globe. So today, listeners, I want to welcome you and talk to you about a topic, because you see, we are now approaching just the last week of the first quarter of this year. And for a lot of you right now, you're starting to think about, whoa, we're already at the last quarter already? Some of you are thinking, oh, you know what? I'm just going to wait for Easter to blow over. Let's get Easter done. Once that's done, then I'll get underway and look at things for the year. But for some of you then, in different parts of the world, are thinking, oh, we're going into autumn, going to winter, maybe I'll wait. For some of you are thinking, oh, we're in spring right now. We're going to have a summer break. It's been a big year, and I haven't had a break. So I'm going to sort of just maybe wait until the summer holidays are over. Well, team, I'm here to tell you something. That for a lot of you, you've got just over a week to go in the quarter. You can do various things. You can get things over the line still. You can still make things happen. You still can achieve some fantastic things based on what you want to do. You can make a decision right now to be able to get on with it, to pull things across the line, to make things happen. I remember in businesses and other areas that I've worked with or been part of, we had a massive goal to achieve, and we're 1 week out, and we're nowhere near it. And for a lot of people, they were freaking out, thinking, okay, we're not going to make it. But as we focused, as we started to hone into certain things, we started to notice something. As we sort of started thinking differently, lifted our thinking, started to think a little bit more around the growth mindset of what we could do, how we could put things in place, what we could make things happen, things started to happen. It's really quite weird sometimes to look at it and you think about, well, what do you mean? Well, I know many times that I have set goals, and they've been those big, audacious, hairy goals, as we call them, and they've been massive, scary. But as I set those goals, certain things in my life start to happen. And I think to myself, wow, what's going on there? Just recently, I've been thinking about bringing some new business and so forth and setting some goals around that space. And then all of a sudden the other day, boop, something happened and came into my inbox actually on the LinkedIn platform that then introduced me to, or actually made me aware of something coming up. And somebody was looking for a facilitator. And I reached out to that person and spoke to them and said, hi, this is who I am. And they told me the dates and what their brief was. And I said to them, probably may not be able to do it on that date. But then they came back to me and said, well, we're going to move the date, and would you be able to help us out? And so I've gone ahead and done that. See, team, what actually happens is that as you set the goal, as you think about your next steps, your actions, and so forth, as you start to take action, things start to happen. And it's really quite interesting to see that. So if you're now in a situation whereby you're thinking, okay, we're only a few days away from the end of the quarter, what can I do? I'm just going to run through with you right now just some ideas about what you might want to start thinking about, some questions for yourself to enable you to start really digging deep and thinking about what you need to do, what your team might need to do, what your organization might need to do to push things over the line in a way that whereby you're going to see some success. It's not over until it's over. The amount of times that I've seen people who have set goals, and even right through to the last 12 hours, it's still not there. But then maybe their turnover, their sales revenue, their sales targets, or any other goals they might have, in that 12 hours, they double what they were already on. Yes, not just go by a little bit, they've actually doubled it, and they've seen big results happen. Yes, at the end of the finish line, they are exhausted, they are done. But you know what? They went and did something. What was more important for them is that they understood the ability to be able to make things happen for themselves, make things happen for the organization. And for a lot of us, as we come up against obstacles, we tend to sort of step away. We tend to think, oh, it's too hard. For those who push through and break through those barriers, they're the ones who will actually go on to succeed around that target. But not only that, they will start to succeed in other areas of their life as well, because there's a big learning for them. And that is to be able to break through the barrier of those obstacles to get to where you need to get to. And I'm going to tell you that when I see that happen for myself or for others, it's a sweet thing. It's brilliant. It's just beautiful. And so, team, I'm going to encourage you to start thinking about these things. The first thing I will get you to do is to start thinking about, okay, what do I need to get done? All right, what do I need to get done? Now, the thing is, you probably need to understand what's your current state right now, where you at with things right now, and then the things that you need to get done. So that's going to be your desired state or where you want to end up, right, that end picture. There's obviously going to be some gaps there. So the first thing is, well, what do I need to get done now to get across the line? What do I need to have happen to get across the lines? And then here's another question, which is a little bit interesting because for some of you, you may have tried certain things, certain approaches. The question here is, it may not have always worked. So I'm going to get you and challenge your thinking, get you to think about it differently. In other words, what things, items, approaches have I not tried or implemented so far to get these things done? Because sometimes we think about one approach, but there is different ways you can look at things. And maybe there's a way that you haven't thought of yet, or one that you did know of, but you actually haven't tried or actually implemented yet. And so, team, think about that. So what are the things, items, approaches I have not tried or implemented to get this goal or things done for me? The other thing I would talk about is how might I or how will I now put those things, those items, those approaches in place? And so it's about how you identify what you want to get done, identify where you are right now in the current state, understand that there are some gaps, think about how you're going to close those gaps by looking at the things that you might want to do, the items you might want to attack, or some approaches you might want to take, and the ones that you may not have already done in the past. And then finally, how may I, or how might I, or how will I now put things or items or approaches in place to make them happen? Now, once again, team, I've talked about this before. It's easy for me to talk about, but not always easy to do. But if you took some time out now, today, as you're listening straight after this podcast, if you took some time out today to brainstorm a little bit. You might want to get an A4 size, or maybe it's like a legal size, depending what country you're in, or an A3 size, which is probably the double the size of the legal or A4. A sketch pad as an example. Brainstorm. Get on a whiteboard, on some blank pieces of paper. Brainstorm. Whether that's words, whether that's a spreadsheet, whether that's pictures, whether it's a mind map. Find a way that you tend to resonate and brainstorm with as a tool to help you think. And ask yourself this question when you're always doing that brainstorming. Is there something else that I need to be thinking about? Or is there something that I've missed? Is there something that maybe that I haven't thought about yet? Here's an example, team. When people tell me one or two options, and when they're looking at doing things to move forward, certain solutions that they might want to put in place around their goals and so forth, I always ask them, what is option 3? And time again, it's amazing what happens here. And I'll give you some examples. There is a person I was working with recently, and they were looking at going into a new career for them and doing another role. And so as they were leaving their current role, they were thinking about certain things going forward. And for them, they had two sort of options on the table. But I asked them what was the third option. And they sort of sat back and their eyebrows went up, thinking, this is something different. Third option? I didn't even think about a third option. And I'm not kidding here. What actually happened after that meeting? Within probably about an hour later, they got a phone call and option 3 appeared in front of them. Team, you'll have that ability to ask yourself those kind of questions. What is my third option? Or is there another option I haven't thought of yet? Is there another option out there? And so if you're asking those kind of questions, for some of you, it may happen and you may actually see a third option, a fourth option, whatever that other option is for you. For some of you, you may not see it. But here's something else for you around your goals. You may be expecting something to happen. And it may come that way, which is great. But it may come to you packaged a little bit differently to what you are expecting. As an example, again, around helping some people around their roles, some people have been wanting to get a certain executive role, a C-suite or a senior leadership role. But what has actually come out in front of them is a contractor's role or a consulting role where they may have gone in for 6 months to a year into an organization. It's exactly what they're wanting to do, but it's not a permanent full-time role. It's packaged a little bit differently. So be open to your goals. Be open to the way that you want to go out there and achieve it. There's the 3 things I'm going to say to you that actually are so important now for you, team, to bring this quarter to an end. Bring it home strong. Be focused on what you need. Be focused on what you want to do. Number 2, be disciplined in what you need to get done. If you're up at 5 a.m., keep going. If you're up at 6 a.m. every morning, keep going. Keep doing the things that you do in and day out. Stay disciplined. So stay focused, stay disciplined. And the third thing is be consistent. If you're going to do things on a regular basis, do it on a regular basis. If you're doing things, be consistent. Focus, discipline, and consistency in conjunction with taking massive action, that's where you're going to see results happen for you, your team, and your organization. This is the time where this is where we see people shine. This is the time where we see people step up to go and do what they need to go and do. It's really important that you focus on those questions that I talked about today to ask for yourself and helping you move forward to bring the quarter to an end, in conjunction with being focused, staying disciplined, being consistent, along with that massive action. And you team, you as listeners, will hopefully get to see some really great stuff. I would love to hear from you on how things are progressing for you, where you are at, where you're actually listening to this podcast, this episode, and then what you went and did and put in place, and then what was the results for you going forward. If there's any of you who are actually wanting some help around this, if you need help, if you want to reach out to me to spend some time with me, feel free to send me an email, dennis@leadingchangepartners.com, or send me a private message on social media, whether it be Facebook or Messenger or on any of the social media platforms. Send me a message. Love to catch up with you. Love to spend some time and helping you with some clarity and bring it home, making things happen and helping you go out there and achieve what you need to do. So team, always awesome to catch up with you. Hey, if you haven't already checked out the Facebook group or the LinkedIn page, Leadership is Changing, please come along and join those communities. Love to see you there. But hey, it's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for joining us on today's show. So what we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Change is incredibly scary, especially with the unknown and the unfamiliar territory. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing. Look out for the episodes as they are being published and released. Download them, have a listen, put a review, a rating, share them with your friends, your family, your network. Thank you to all those who've actually given some comments and some reviews and ratings. Love seeing those come through. Hey team, if you are wanting to give me any feedback on the show or any questions for my guests as I interview them, or if you have a question for me on the Ask Denis freestyle episode, feel free to send me an email, dennis@leadingchangepartners.com. All right, team, as I said before, always a pleasure having you here on the show with me. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.